The morning sun rose gracefully over the vast expanse of the deep blue ocean, casting a brilliant golden blanket across the pristine white sands of the tropical paradise. The gentle rustle of emerald palm leaves dancing in the warm sea breeze created a soothing melody that seemed to welcome a brand new day of dreams and transformations. Standing on the grand wooden pier, dressed in his immaculate, signature white suit, Mr. Rourke adjusted his cuffs with a serene smile on his face. His calm and commanding presence radiated an aura of profound wisdom and absolute assurance. Next to him, struggling slightly to keep up with the grand stature of his beloved employer, was his loyal and enthusiastic assistant, Tattoo. The little man looked up at the horizon, his eyes wide with anticipation as the distant hum of an incoming airplane began to vibrate through the clear blue sky. Mr. Rourke turned his head slightly toward his compact companion, his voice smooth and welcoming as he spoke. "Good morning, class. Good morning, Tattoo. Smiles, everyone. Smiles." He reminded those around him of the essential philosophy of their sanctuary, where happiness was the ultimate currency. Tattoo shielded his eyes from the bright tropical sun, squinting at the passengers who were beginning to disembark from the aircraft that had just touched down on the private runway. His eyes immediately caught sight of a particular gentleman who walked with a slightly hurried, hesitant step, constantly adjusting his collar and looking around as if the very air made him uncomfortable. "Boss, who is that man?" Tattoo inquired, his curiosity instantly piqued by the stranger's unusual demeanor. Mr. Rourke followed his assistant's gaze, his expression softening into one of deep understanding and professional concern. "His name is Mr. Fred Simpson." Tattoo watched the man closely, noting the way his hands twitched nervously at his sides. "He looks kind of nervous." Mr. Rourke nodded slowly, clasping his hands behind his back as they observed the new arrival from a respectful distance. "Perhaps because he is suffering from a very distressing affliction. You see, Tattoo, Mr. Simpson is a kleptomaniac." The word hung in the warm air for a moment, causing Tattoo to gasp slightly in surprise. His hand instinctively flew to his own pockets, and a look of sudden panic crossed his face as his mind raced to the potential dangers of having such a guest on their peaceful island. "A crook. Boss, are you sure you locked up the safe in the office?" "Perhaps I should explain something to you, Tattoo," Mr. Rourke replied, a gentle, patient smile touching his lips as he sought to correct his assistant's immediate misconception. "With Mr. Simpson, as with all kleptomaniacs, the urge to steal is not because of personal desire or monetary rewards. It is simply an obsession with him. A psychological disorder, really." Tattoo scratched his head, trying to process the complex nature of a man who took things not out of greed, but out of an uncontrollable mental whisper. "What is his fantasy?" Mr. Rourke looked at Fred Simpson, who was now nervously wiping his brow with a handkerchief. "His fantasy is to be free forever of this compulsion to steal, which I suspect would require a great deal of ingenuity on our part to accomplish." Before Tattoo could ask another question about the mysterious ways they would help the nervous gentleman, his eyes wandered to the passenger walking just behind Mr. Simpson. It was a striking young woman, elegant and poised, carrying herself with a sharp, professional dignity that stood out against the casual holiday attire of the other travelers. She held a high-quality leather purse securely against her side, her grip firm and protective. "Pretty lady with Mr. Simpson?" Tattoo remarked, nodding in her direction. Mr. Rourke smiled faintly, shaking his head. "No, not Tattoo. The young lady is Miss Emily Carlyle. She is a courier from a very high-priced New York jewelry company. She has come to Fantasy Island to make a delivery." Tattoo looked back and forth between the nervous gentleman and the elegant courier, a look of profound confusion darkening his face. "She was on a plane with a thief." "I thought I just explained that to you, Tattoo," Mr. Rourke murmured softly, his tone a gentle reminder of the nuance of the human mind. Just then, another passenger stepped off the ramp, and Tattoo's jaw dropped in absolute disbelief. He rubbed his eyes, thinking the bright tropical sun was playing tricks on his vision. The woman walking down the steps was dressed in an incredibly lavish, sophisticated outfit, carrying herself like a member of high society, but her face was unmistakably familiar to anyone who had ever ordered a quick meal near the mainland ports. "Boss, that is Loretta, the waitress who is slinging ash at the Lordship restaurant up near Oak?" Mr. Rourke maintained his perfectly composed demeanor, giving a small, affirmative nod. That is right, Tattoo. However, for the next 2 days, you will refer to her as Mrs. Loretta Wentworth of Wentworth Mansion. Tattoo looked at his boss as if the elegant gentleman had completely lost his mind. But boss, that is crazy. Yesterday, she served me a hillbilly hamburger with onion. Mr. Rourke turned to look directly at his assistant, his gaze steady and filled with a deeper purpose that went beyond mere surface appearances. Nevertheless, today she is Mrs. Wentworth, an elegant lady of wealth and social position. Tattoo sighed, knowing better than to argue when his employer had that specific look in his eyes. Agreed, boss. Tattoo watched the newly designated Mrs. Wentworth adjust her expensive hat, still trying to reconcile the image of the elegant lady with the hard-working woman who wiped down greasy counters. Her fantasy is to be the opposite of a hash slinger. Mr. Rourke looked at her with a profound sense of empathy, understanding the deep maternal love that drove her request. Her fantasy, Tattoo, is to be the fine lady of social status she believes her daughter Lorraine wants her to be. Tattoo's expression softened, but a practical concern arose in his mind. But boss, her daughter will know the truth about her. Mr. Rourke shook his head gently, explaining the unique and touching circumstances of this particular family reunion. No, Tattoo. You see, Mrs. Wentworth and her child have not seen each other since the little girl was given up for adoption when only 9 months old. As the guests gathered at the welcoming area, surrounded by the lush beauty and magnificent architecture of the island resort, Mr. Rourke stepped forward to greet them. His voice carried a magnificent warmth that instantly commanded the attention of everyone present, making each individual feel as though the entire island had been created solely for their happiness. My dear guests, I am Mr. Rourke, your host. Welcome to Fantasy Island. A short while later, inside the privacy of Mr. Rourke's elegantly appointed office, Fred Simpson sat nervously on the edge of a luxurious leather chair. His hands were moving constantly, tapping against his knees, wringing his fingers, and occasionally darting toward the shiny silver items resting on the grand mahogany desk before he forced them back down. It is just so embarrassing, Mr. Rourke. Even my best friends do not want me around. Mr. Rourke poured a refreshing drink and handed it to his distressed guest, sitting across from him with an expression of undivided attention. You mean you steal from your friends? Fred looked down, his face flushing with deep shame. I cannot help it. Naturally, when I realize what I have done, I return this stuff. If it is valuable, I give them cash, too. I mean, double the amount of whatever I stole was worth. But my friends are getting a little tired of my habit. So am I. Mr. Rourke leaned forward, his analytical mind already working on the structure of the cure. Now tell me, Mr. Simpson, just what happens when this urge to steal overcomes you? Fred sighed, trying to put into words the bizarre sensory experience that had plagued his adult life. Well, first of all, I only steal things that are shiny. Mr. Rourke raised an eyebrow, noting the specific trigger. Shiny? Yeah, I see something shiny, and then I freeze up for a second. And then this boing sound goes around in my head. Mr. Rourke repeated the sound, fascinated by the psychological manifestation. Boing sound? Fred nodded quickly, gesturing toward his own head. Next thing I know, I have stolen something again. I have tried everything, Mr. Rourke. Nothing works. You have got to help me. Mr. Rourke stood up, walking toward the large window that looked out over the beautiful estate. Well, I cannot guarantee that I cannot kill you, Mr. Simpson, but I will do everything in my power to help you kill yourself, huh? Fred blinked, slightly startled by the choice of words but recognizing the underlying promise of a radical transformation. That is all I am asking. Very well. In the meantime, I will assign Tattoo to stay with you and, shall we say, keep him out of trouble. As Fred stood up to leave, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in years, Mr. Rourke suddenly cleared his throat and held out an open hand with a knowing smile. Oh, Mr. Simpson, my pen, if you please. Fred froze, looked down at his own hand, and realized to his horror that he was firmly grasping Mr. Rourke's expensive gold fountain pen. His face turned bright red as he quickly returned it to the desk. I am sorry. I could allocate myself no control. I could not help myself. Mr. Rourke accepted the pen graciously, his warmth unchanging. "Thank you. Have a nice day." Meanwhile, in another part of the Grand Resort, the woman who was known to the world as Loretta but was currently transforming into high society stood before a full-length mirror. She was wearing a magnificent, flowing gown of the finest fabric, her hair styled into an elegant updraft that highlighted her mature beauty. Yet, as she looked at her reflection, she could not help but feel a deep sense of imposter syndrome. "Am I really gonna fool anybody in this fancy get-up, Mr. Rourke?" she asked as the host entered the dressing room to check on her progress. Mr. Rourke looked at her with genuine admiration. "Well, you look absolutely charming, Mrs. Wentworth. Doesn't she, Tattoo?" Tattoo, who was standing nearby holding a small, fluffy lapdog, nodded vigorously. "Yes, boss. And the dog, too." Loretta looked down at the tiny, pampered animal with a look of slight skepticism. "Well, to tell you the truth, I prefer animals that walk on their own legs."